Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through the action in Super League basketball, which is a bit more dramatic than I thought it was going to be. But there we go.
Yeah,
Let's start on Friday night because it's all trophy action this weekend. So let's. Oh, there's one cup game thrown in, but we'll quickly go through that. Let's start on Friday night. Newcastle Eagles 94, Sheffield Sharks 89. All the usual guys missing for Newcastle. Nixon was back for Sheffield. James got his first start. Um, there isn't really much to go through in this one, Dave, aside from a couple of brief moments where the lead was about 6 or 7 points. They were trading scores throughout.
well, firstly, I wasn't there. I was at the office Christmas party.
Nice.
I'm
Nice.
becoming too senior to be able to avoid it, sadly.
Mm.
So yeah, so I kind
Jaeger
of watched
bombs
it
and
afterwards.
Sambucas, was it, Dave?
Yeah, I was driving. It was lemonade, as ever, always, and the cheap lemonade as well. Not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
posh one. So I watched it afterwards. So I don't have any specific insight beyond what you guys saw on the screen. Yeah, I mean, I thought there was a bit of comedy reffing.
Mm.
There was the world's harshest ever flop warning on Clark for being wrestled to the ground by
Yeah,
Ocho,
yeah,
and then the world's double harshest ever 3 second call on Deloge for standing in
yeah,
the 2.5 seconds
yeah.
on a missed shot from Chapman from the corner. So, I thought that was the most intriguing stuff. Um, yeah, watching it, you're right. I mean, but Sheffield started like a team that, basically knew that they'd only put up 68 points a week before against Newcastle at
Mm.
home. And really, that isn't kind of good enough, not with that lineup that Newcastle have. And they started offensively aggressively. But Newcastle had some good rhythm as well. And, Newcastle got contributions kind of all the way down their bench, and particularly Canway and Candy,
Mm.
which sounds like a kind of a slightly dodgy firm of lawyers. Um,
Maybe they were having their Christmas party as
Yeah,
well, Dave.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the good thing about Silver is he's got a nickname waiting to happen, hasn't he? The Candyman. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
there. The Candyman's coming, whatever. But he again he knocked down some shots in this game which they need.
yeah.
To play minutes. And he knocked down four against the Greek team when they got hammered in the midweek, and then he knocked down a couple last week as well. So I looked up his stats, and he's shooting on low volume, like 55% from three. So
Mm.
that will get you some minutes, three and D. And because of that, Newcastle were just kind of able to survive the initial storm. And James made a hell of a shot on the buzzer at the
Mm.
first quarter, banked in a three from 50 feet. But when the game slowed down a little bit, Newcastle were kind of able to grind Sheffield down a little bit.
Mm.
I did think, as a trophy game, and you're always looking for kind of little things in trophy games. And out of the Eagles team, who was there last year who played in the trophy? Cole Long,
Mm.
who played in the final. They won the final,
Yeah,
probably the
yeah,
best of his career. They won, but if you're a pro, you don't get the chance to win stuff that much. You don't get those
yeah.
days. There was a guy who came out with 9 points in the first 2 minutes.
Mm.
Cole Long, and he hasn't always been that aggressive early. So I do think there's kind of there's a historical thing to it. There's a context thing to these games, whereas some player you'd think every player would understand how different it is, but they don't.
Mm.
They have to live it. They have to see it. They have to be through it before they have that extra little bit. But yeah, then it kind of it just the game just kind of continued.
Mm.
It was funny watching it back because there wasn't really an edge to the game. I thought there might have been. There wasn't as much. It was still a game. It was kind of a well played offensive game, really.
Mm.
And neither team was really good enough defensively to get kind of multiple stops the way they needed to. And to say, I think, I say that you throw some comedy reference in there, then it becomes an interesting game.
I was watching on Synergy. Defoe went out in the second quarter, but Synergy cuts out people lying on the floor. I
Yeah,
didn't
what
quite
happened
see what
was,
happened.
yeah, well, what happened was he drove the baseline, got fouled, and as he went down, I think it was Kern or it was one of the Sheffield guys was kind of came behind him, and it was accidental contact with his leg to Defoe's head. It
Mm. Okay.
was a concussion thing. So basically, Darius kind of went down, fell backwards, and his head kind of didn't hit the ground, but it bounced up. But there was a Sheffield guy running along, running close to him, and it was just an incidental contact with his head. So just one of those things, unfortunately, not what you really needed, but Canway kind of stepped up.
Mm. So let's just skip through to the fourth quarter because not a lot really to talk about before then. Mid fourth quarter, Eagles scored nine in a row to lead 82 74. We'll just go through the final couple of minutes. Eagles were up six. Two Dirk free throws and a Chapman block meant with 90 seconds to go, it's 86 81. 118 to go. Chapman missed the three, but the ball went over the top of the backboard and obviously not out of bounds. And I actually thought it was quite impressive that it was Kern who went after it because normally Americans, when they play the first year, just assume that's out of bounds. He kept it in play and then he got it back and dunked it with 110 to go, 86.
Just on the
8.
basis of commentators setting low bars, it's quite impressive that a player knows the rules.
Well, we'll get a bit later on and see
Yeah,
if all our referees know the rules as well.
yeah, okay.
Uh,
But yeah, I get that. Just going back a little bit. I mean, Newcastle had a little bit of fortune. I mean, that 8-0 run that you're talking about, Jack banked one in from the corner, and then
oh
managed,
yeah, he
and
banked
then
it corner
managed.
three, and then what was the next
Well, I
play?
think Dirk Williams
Oh, he Dirk
bobbled
tipped
it,
it. Yeah,
he bobbled it in from under the ground. So I mean,
yeah,
at that point, you kind of do think, and of course, the reality was this was a more of a must-win game for Newcastle than it was for Sheffield.
yeah,
Because if Newcastle didn't win this game, they would have been, at very best kind of points difference of zero,
mm,
no chance of qualifying, points difference of zero, 1-1. They're not going to win the group because the other two teams get the chance to,
mm,
because either team can overtake them in the last game.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Newcastle really had to win this game. Sheffield had a second shot at it today. So I thought that the other thing about just before you get right to the end of it, Sheffield are obviously roping some guys back in. Nixon was back in for this game. He got a little bit out of control in the third quarter. I thought he shot a few shots which were a little bit off balance. He forced it a little bit, which is what players tend to do when they're coming back from like 4 or 5 weeks. They've had that. They had that a little bit with James as well. And they've got a lot of talent there, so you've got to try and figure it all out. But yeah, the game came back to basically can Newcastle not turn the ball over because they turned it over 4 times in the last 3.5 minutes,
mm,
and can Sheffield kind of execute to get themselves back in? One of those games where I thought if Sheffield got into the lead, that was going to be it, but they never
yeah.
did.
47 seconds to go. Jack with the give and go. Camway with Camway, and he lays it in 88
I thought that
83.
was bad defense.
It
That
was
was
bad
William
defense.
Lee switched out, and he switched out because Newcastle have run the same stuff the whole game, whereby Jack's throwing it back to the top. So Lee overplayed him right at the top. At the top, basically, to stop him throwing the ball sideways, but gave him a lane to the basket. Now, the logic Lee's thinking is, well, Jack's already picked the basketball up. Therefore, he can't dribble it. Therefore, I may as well pressure him and stop that pass. So I get that. But Canway did a really good job of showing for the basketball, and Jack was good enough to improvise to throw him the ball and get it straight back. So it
Mm,
was a gamble. It was the equivalent. It was gamble defense. It was the equivalent of going for a steal. Lee
mm,
thought he'd overplay. He thought he'd maybe get something out of it. Instead, they gave up a layup. And Newcastle's half court at the end there, they needed somebody to make a decision for them, and I thought
mm.
they made that decision for Jack.
Kern was then fouled, made two free throws, 88 85. 30 seconds to go. I wasn't sure they needed that foul that was scored on Dirk Williams there. It was his fifth. Taylor makes the first, the second one misses, so it's 85 89, 89 85 even. Kern quickly to the rim, makes it a 2 point game, 89 87. Um, 21.8 seconds left. Newcastle inbounded the ball. And Taylor was actually tangled up with the photographer or something or other. So they only had four players on the court. If I were them, I'd have waited for him to get back up. And then Clark gets doubled. He throws it off the leg of Chapman out of bounds.
I think Nick
Um,
just put two hands on him, didn't he?
well, I thought it was a bit of a phantom foul. I couldn't see what was called
But
there.
I thought my impression was that it was because of Nixon's reaction. Nixon was like, "What?" I'd have to on the camera. I thought my impression was Nixon put two hands on Clark, and it was kind of the softest of nudges, if I can
Mm,
put it that way.
mm,
But it certainly wasn't. I agree, there wasn't too much to it.
yeah.
And it wasn't, and he wasn't. I don't think he was trying to foul. That was the
No,
thing. So,
no.
so yeah,
Um,
Newcastle caught a break.
so, well, they'd have got a sideline ball anyway because he did throw
Yeah.
it off the legs of Chapman. Clark misses the second free throw, so it's 90-87. 14.9 seconds, Nixon all the way to the basket for two, makes it a 1 point game. Um, Taylor's immediately fouled. He makes two, so it's back to three.
Yeah,
Timeout.
Sheffield did a good job of attacking the rim. To be
Mm,
fair, in the fourth, in those last minutes, it's almost like they, they're weird because they played with urgency at the end. They didn't necessarily play with that same degree of urgency, I thought, throughout the game, and
mm,
that sometimes is a result of having so many players
mm,
because they're coming in and out, and they don't have that kind of attachment to the game.
mm. Uh, Sheffield had three unbelievably good looks to tie it. Nixon turned one down.
Yeah.
Then he drove to kick to Lee, who was wide open for three, but he missed it. Then Curtin tips it out to Chapman, who's wide open. That one was short for three. And then Clark gets the rebound and he's fouled with 3.4 seconds left and makes both free throws to make
Yeah,
it 94
I mean, yeah, they
89.
did. I mean, Newcastle's D on the last. I was surprised that Canway was in the game and not long because Canway. What happened was when Nixon penetrated, Nixon made the right play. He penetrated, he got in the paint, but Canway came off Lee. You
Mm,
know, like you give Nixon the lane, you're not, he wasn't actually stopping Nixon anyway, but he came off him far enough to be stuck right in between. It was almost like your young big guy is used to having to protect the paint, used to having to protect the paint, but situational basketball, you're up by three.
mm,
And you see he drops way off Lee, and Nixon hits him for a kind of a rhythm three, but Lee hadn't really been in a rhythm in the game. So, it was the right guy to be in the game. He's just stretch five. You need a three, so you put him in the game, but he couldn't knock it down. Then yeah, and then they get them to complement the sin. Sheffield get the rebound. Good. Didn't do a Spielman. Threw it out.
mm,
Threw it out. Good luck for Chapman, and again bounced off. And sometimes that's basketball. Newcastle probably made multiple mistakes in the last minute, or certainly in the last play. But if the shots don't go in,
yeah,
nobody thinks about it. You win. Happy
yeah.
days. Everyone's happy. And you just got to, as a coach, you've kind of got to chalk up the mistakes and make sure they don't go unrectified
Mm.
the next time, because next time somebody will knock them down. Um, and from Sheffield's perspective, um, yeah, they think, well, hang on, we give up 94 points to that kind of Eagles team with that level of, with those guys missing. That's probably not great. I mean, even last week they only gave up 80.
Mm.
And you look at the kind of the physical advantage that Sheffield have got with their athleticism and their size at the size of the guard spot with Chapman and Nixon and Williams, and even then the size at the centre because you've got Deloach and Ocherobia going up against Canway on his own basically, and you
Mm.
think that there should be a way that they can make that physical dominance impact the defense, and they didn't in the game. Um, and they gave up, kind of open threes to Hammond in the corner, and they just didn't make enough solid plays, I don't think, to justify kind of getting the game.
My final note here before the scorers is Kern hit a three after the buzzer, and then in brackets, capital letters, is this important? Question mark. Because I'd obviously watched this on Saturday morning because I too was at a Christmas party Friday night. And
Yeah,
I just left that note there for myself just to check back. And guess what? If that
it
shot
was.
was on time, Sheffield would be in the semi-finals.
Was that a 40, was that being 14?
It would have
84, not 14, did they?
it would have put them level with Bristol, and they therefore would have gone through on points scored.
Points scored is a tiebreaker, is it? Well,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
no sense
yeah,
because as far as I'm concerned, you should reward defense.
yeah.
But yeah, oh wow, scary. Yeah, well, I mean, the box score is really interesting on this game because Sheffield's standout player when you're watching the game is Nick Kern. Nick Kern had 23 points, 9 rebounds, what 10 of 12 from the field, something like that. Yeah,
9 of 11.
yeah, he's 9 of 11 from the field. Yeah, he has the worst plus minus in the whole game.
Mm,
And he does, I know plus minuses are, one game plus minuses can give lie to anything.
mm,
But still, it's indicative of the fact that it's integrating him, and he's not doing anything other than what he's meant to do. He's doing his job,
mm,
right? And he's not playing he's doing exactly what the team wants him to do. He's doing it very well, and so there's no criticism at all of him at all. But you have to try and find a way of making that into something that positively impacts you on the stat sheet. That
mm,
makes sense.
mm,
No way should anybody shooting 9 of 11 from the field be minus, in 25 minutes, be a minus 11 in the game.
mm,
All right. So, what is it about the other combinations? What is it about the combinations who are on the court with him? What is it about the shot distribution? Because Mervyn James is somebody they clearly like, and he's going to clearly get the ball quite a lot in this Sheffield team.
mm,
I watched the 2 games he's played now, and he's been back into it. So then you've got Chapman, Dirk Williams, Nixon, and Kern. That's 5 guys who are really, really good dominant scorers at times.
mm,
So how's that work? And if you remember, how's it work? And if you remember last year, where Sheffield got their major success was when they were able to play with the 2 guards, Clay, and then Anderson and Ratinho, who are guys who didn't really want the ball, just
mm,
moved the ball, moved it on. So it's finding that balance that's the hardest thing, with the roster they've got.
mm. Long 16, Jack Taylor and Hammond all had 15. Kern, we mentioned his numbers 23 points, 9 of 11, and 9 rebounds. Chapman, 19.6 assists. Deloach and James both had 10 points each and 15 rebounds between them.
Yeah, for all those stats, so the stats that actually won the game for Newcastle are the fact that Canway and Candy had 21 points between them. Canway had 4 blocks.
Mm,
Again, these are, I think Canway is 22, Candy is 23. So, these are young British players who are positively impacting wins against good teams. So that's really positive for Newcastle.
mm. Bristol Flyers 62, London Lions 71. Holden was back, but Dugalich kept his spot in the starters. Scott is out for 10 to 12 weeks now. Soko was back. First run of the game came around the first quarter break. London with 11 in a row to lead 13 to 26. And to be honest with you, that was basically the ball game.
Yeah, Bristol started 5 out, and if you remember, I think they played them once before when, not in the game that they won, maybe the first game that they lost. And I was interested that they started the big guy, Brody.
Brody. Mm,
Um, and what I said was it kind of took at that point, it kind of took them out of their game in relation to stretching the floor and having the 5 out, and it didn't really work. So to be fair, Andreas, this I can't remember what they did the second time, but when they beat them, but in this game he starts McCormack at the 5, so basically they are stretching again. The difficulty that Bristol had, I thought, in the first quarter, and it's interesting that actually Del Pesh came in the game before Brody, so I'm not quite sure, which is unusual.
mm,
Del Pesh is normally off the bench, and Brody starts, but not starting either of them. That he went with Del Pesh first, I thought was interesting. But what it meant was that you looked at all the you looked around the matchups, and kind of London had a size advantage and a length advantage on every single one.
mm,
From Joe Anderson to Joe Anderson's got Adamu, and Yoakum has got McGusty, and they've all got a couple of inches. And Dean Williams is starting, I think, because Joe Scott's not. So Dean Williams is going to become a really important player for them now, rather than kind of a mismatch 3 or 4 would do whatever the coach wants. He's basically the starting 4 now, and will be probably going forwards. And obviously they had the big guy Williams playing as well in the middle.
mm,
So you add all that, and you're looking at they're all slightly bigger. And what it meant was that Bristol's 5 out really didn't gain any traction. They couldn't get any open looks or they couldn't knock them down. Maybe they were open because it was hard for them to fire the ball around the way they have because of the length of um, London and the ability of them to get in the passing lane. And I thought that's what stifled them. So Anderson was stifled to a certain degree. Yoakum was stifled, and their get out of jail in those situations is normally to throw the ball to Holden,
mm,
particularly in the post. That because he's 6'4", 6'5", so generally has a guard on him, and he generally has a physical kind of capability to compete there. And obviously he didn't start and didn't play that many minutes in this game, so I thought that's what stifled them defensively. On top of that, of course, London have 1 loss on their record,
yeah, yeah,
and that's in Bristol.
yeah.
And on top of that, Dean Williams is starting, and Dean Williams is from Bristol.
Mm,
You know, so I thought, you know, you put all that together, and I think we said it, didn't we, 2 or 3 weeks ago when Bristol beat them, they might want to save that one for the trophy.
Yeah, yeah,
In the end, it
yeah.
didn't matter, but even so, it was tough. It's going to be tough for any team to beat London twice in a row. I
Mm,
think on their own floor,
mm.
like that. And you're right. That was kind of it. I mean,
There was a
um,
spell in the fourth quarter. Bristol got it to 8, and they had some chances to get it closer, but they didn't take any of them. Score sat on 55-63
yeah,
for
I had
about
an open
two
three. I had an
minutes.
open
Yeah,
three on the wing. I think I can't remember, but it was the old 8 points in a 50-50 game.
yeah,
Wasn't
yeah.
it? It was a you couldn't see them ever quite getting there. And London are not messing around, but they're playing lots of guys. No one's playing more than 25 minutes. He's constantly, he's coaching the health of his players as much as anything else. To make sure, and he has faith in his whole roster. And they have this, advantage now. I assume Scott's now being deregistered because Lithuanian guy played today,
Lukashenas.
and Reynolds was back as well.
Mm, mm,
So, even and Williams didn't play, and McGusty didn't play. So there's their
mm,
six. So
mm,
they probably just put Scott on the shelf for a few weeks whilst and they had to bring back Reynolds, who's a high level point guard. So, you know, they have a multitude of riches.
mm,
Bringing Soko back after 3 months, I think everybody in the league would handle that, would be
mm,
happy for that. And Bristol have to play the perfect game, and to a certain degree, London have to shoot 3 of 29 from three, which is what they shot in the first game
yeah,
in the
yeah,
game that they
yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah.
So and neither of those things happened in this game. The important thing, of course, for Bristol was keeping it as close as they could.
Mm. Yep, yep, and they did, and it was close enough, and they couldn't have afforded another 3 points. Delpesh 13 points, Joe Anderson 12, Joachim 12, 12 of 23 again from the free throw line, pretty poor.
Yeah, didn't help.
And Price 4 of 5 for 14 points, McGusty 11, Dean Williams 10 points and 7
I mean, there's
rebounds.
a point, I think, in the third or the fourth quarter where Delpesh missed four in a row.
Mm,
That kind of kills you.
yeah.
You miss two, you get your offensive rebound, then you miss another two.
Mm,
That's kind of an air out the building type of thing.
yeah.
And he's obviously he's not a great foul shooter, but he's a better foul shooter than that.
Mm,
And yeah, they have that ability to stifle teams when they really want to. London, I thought they started off this game the way they were going to, like they really wanted to.
mm. A quick sojourn to the Cup.
Mm.
Surrey 89ers 99, Caledonia Gladiators 69. Queeley with another serious injury. Just can't seem to
Just
catch a
brutal.
break, can he? It's
Yeah.
terrible. Lawrence is also out. Wright, Holland, and Delpesh were out for Caledonia. I've not seen any official word on Kevin Allen, but my guess, based on the fact he played 16 minutes for Hapoel Haifa on Wednesday, is that he's no longer with Caledonia. But I haven't seen that
Maybe they've just
confirmed.
loaned him to Israel.
I haven't seen it confirmed as yet. But
Um,
yeah,
yeah, well, yeah, yeah. I think that's pretty much the clear. I mean, that rather the fact that there hasn't been a press release
yeah.
saying
Maybe
that
there
he's
has,
got.
and I've missed it. That is
No, I mean,
eminently
the fact that
possible.
there hasn't been would rather indicate the view that the Caledonia hierarchy took of the personality of Mr. Allen.
Yeah, yeah.
Really,
Um,
not
this was
even
just
not even a wishing all the best.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
This was a slightly weird game in that Surrey won the game by 30 without any like real proper runs. It was a sort of accumulation of leads. It was a sort of they would score two or three baskets every time Caledonia scored one. There wasn't a massive, 24-4 run
Um,
or something.
I thought Caledonia's first six defensive possessions were utterly abominable, awful, disastrous. They gave up and it didn't get much better for them from that
Mm,
moment on. Um, there are, they're down in the backcourt,
mm,
right? Holland and Wright. So Del Pesh obviously he's been out 9 months, so you're not going to get much from him for immediately. So that's not so much the thing. They brought in yet another new American center in. Okay, that's all mitigation. Okay, there's only one way that you can win, and this is a knockout game. This is a one-off game,
mm,
right? Because they got two games this weekend. um, cup trophy. If they don't give the best effort and they lose both of them, their season is basically competing for eighth,
mm,
right? And that's not far off where they're at, maybe
mm,
seventh. All right. So it makes a long, hard winter, right? So, and you've had a break, and you obviously played last week, but whatever, And they came off a kind of a comeback against Newcastle, only losing by three. So they should be, kind of a little bit enthused. And I thought that they're so all of that. And if you take, and again, even more mitigation before I really go in hard. If you take out Lily and Polite out of Surrey and you put Holland and Wright into Caledonia,
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
game, right? And people might think, oh, it's not 30 points. I'm saying it is 30 points,
mm,
right? It might be more, but it's not going to be 60, right? So there's only one way that you can play when you're down bodies, you're on the road, and you're in a win or go home game, right? And you've got to lay it all out there, and you've got to be gritty, and you've got to be tough, and you've got to kind of pull together. And I saw none of that from
mm,
Caledonia. I thought they let their coach down in this game big time. It's all right running up and down and exchanging 3-point shots, but you got to guard somebody at some point. And outside of Jimenez, who you could never ever say doesn't lay it all out there,
mm,
and the new guy Brian, who you can't put anything on because he hustled, he did what he's meant to do, but he's literally just got there. I didn't see anything from them.
mm,
You have to, no way that Surrey team should be beating you by 30 in a one-off game. That doesn't mean Surrey didn't play well. They did. They got shot. They knocked down the shots. They moved the basketball. Everybody got going. But you have to remember, Caledonia went down there beginning of the season and won by 12,
mm,
right? Now the difference was then they scored 105. I think in the first, I think Surrey scored 90 odd. This game, Surrey scored another 90 odd, but Caledonia scored 70. Well, that's because you're down players. So if you're down players, you have to find a different way of covering for that, and you have to get stops,
mm,
and you have to lay it out there, and they didn't. I'm frustrated. I'm watching Fag Benley. I'm really frustrated watching Fag Benley because he's not playing hard. He's not competing. He should be physically dominant in that game. He's got all the minutes he wants. He has the ability, he has the athletic abilities to fly around defensively. Nobody should score on him. Nobody should get an offensive rebound on him. But I watched the first 5 minutes, the last play of the first quarter. Cholovinskas shot a three. Benley came out, put his hand up, and it rebounded straight back to where he'd come from. Benley was just stood there. Cholovinskas caught the ball, would have made a layup. It was a half a second late on the buzzer.
mm,
Wasn't there? The 5 minutes, I don't, they give up their transition defense is woeful. It's not just him, that's a lot of them. They give up so much in transition that that's not, when you've got jump shooters in your team, there's no excuse. They're not going heavily to the offensive glass,
mm,
but they're not getting back. And I get, Holland is their kind of pesky defender, and Wright is their energy guy, and he's going to give them all that. But those guys aren't there. It is next man up, and for them, there was no next man up in this
no,
game.
no, it was poor.
No next man up. And yes, Spielman's going to make shots, and yes, Ragday is going to make shots. And in a perfect world, they're not your number one and two options. They're going to be guys who are going to play off other people and are going to knock down shots. They're going to be your Spencer Johnson type player at
Mm,
Leicester.
mm,
And guys, and so they're not perfectly cut out to be that. But they can't be as passive in a one-off game as they were in this game. I thought they were um, lost at times,
mm,
um, and I thought Surrey did everything they were meant to do to kind of punish that. They got the lad whose name I forgot last week, Max Coupe. Sorry, I won't do it again. Nwankwo came in, got what he
20
wanted at the
minutes, yeah.
rim, effective. They just they just outplayed and out hustled Caledonia,
Mm,
and as I say, outside of Jimenez and
Brian.
outside of Brian, they struggled. Fraser cannot go on the road in a game like that and be 0 of 5 from three. He's been around the league too long now. He has to be the next guy. He has to make those plays on the road in that game. And I get they've had changes, and I get that it's been difficult for them, but and you can handle them losing, but I can't handle them losing for Johnny like that. That's just not on.
Mm,
It's just not on. And you can make excuses and say, "Oh, we've got guys to come back. That'll be all right." No, no, you have to understand where the problem is. The problem is at the defensive end of the court, and the problem is getting back, and the problem is defensive rebounding, and the problem is all the stuff you can control,
Mm,
and I don't see it.
mm.
So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, nothing much more to say about that game, Dan.
No,
Sorry,
no,
sorry,
no.
did
It's a
exactly
long,
what they
as
were
you
meant to
say, it's a
do.
long winter for them now with no knockout competitions left.
Mm.
Lily 19, Polite 6 of 6, 15 points. Sholovinskas 13 points. Ragsdale 16, Bryan 15, Spielman 13, 21 turnovers as well. We didn't touch on that, but yeah, just
Yeah,
that.
I mean, to be fair, they're down guards, and it's far harder to play when you're down two guards than it is when you're down two forwards because you need to get the ball half court, you need to get the ball to where it needs to go. And I thought Surrey played with a real degree of intensity defensively and energy, um, but you got to match that.
Mm, mm.
They didn't. They just didn't.
Let's come to Sunday. We had a gold-plated comb, Dave. That
Ah,
two
yes.
two bald men were fighting over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leicester Riders 111, Manchester Basketball 108 after overtime. Um, no Nduko or Henry in this game. Um, given as this game didn't mean anything because basically neither team were going to qualify no matter what. I was just going to sort of skip through. It was the 2000th scoregami in men's top flight history. That's
Oh,
what I took out
I
of
mean,
it.
that makes it worthwhile. I'm glad it
It
existed
was
now.
worth playing just for that.
I'm just
Um,
gonna, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I know it gets you home quick, but my view is this game should have tipped off at the same time as the other two. There's three
yeah,
different groups. Last game in each group, it was ridiculous that I played. It didn't matter, but for me, it's something which they need to scrutinize. If they're going to have groups finishing at the same time, and points difference being important, the game should finish at the same
yeah,
time. We don't
yeah,
want Austria v West Germany going
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what it's like. And I mean, the only part of this game that got any interest to me was I stuck it on Blue Sky 15 seconds before the end that there was a tactical overtime coming because technically,
I said it.
Yeah,
I said it
Manchester
on
could still have won by
commentary.
15.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I,
I was too
I,
busy watching Newcastle supinely kind of
Oh dear, the
Sunderland to be
weird
listening to
Tiger
you.
Derby didn't go
Yeah,
well.
well,
You big German striker scoring at the wrong end, was it?
it was a hell of a header.
Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, I'm not a rabid. I'm not that rabid whereby I
You
don't
didn't go out and punch a horse or anything, Dave, did you?
I know horses. The horses were safe. So was the wife. There you go.
Yeah.
Um,
The
yeah. So I didn't listen to you most of you. Sorry.
No, no. I literally in that last time out, I said to Ant, actually, Manchester would be better off dribbling this out
Yeah,
because if they
absolutely.
win, they're out. If
They're out.
they and now at the time, Sheffield were up 30, so it didn't seem to matter either way.
So,
But their only hope was to win by 15.
and
Uh,
And here's the thing, right? I've had this before. I've said this before in other done competitions. In my view, again, this is a governance thing. Every overtime game should be a 1 point victory. You
so
should
what
forget
what EuroLeague do and Eurocup is it's zero.
zero. Well,
For
zero's
for
fine.
yeah, for the points difference, it goes down as a zero. Whatever you win by doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I think that makes absolute sense. But obviously, that's EuroLeague. What do they know? We don't
Yeah,
think. No one thinks about it, apart from those of us who are silly enough to talk about it every Sunday night.
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, FIBA don't have that because obviously there was the Lions women's game where Holly was forced to miss a free throw when she could have forced overtime because they didn't want to lose by 7 or 8 or whatever it was in
We should have
overtime.
it. It
Yeah.
should. So yeah. So the game, yeah.
I can just run through what
Okay.
happened. Just
Yeah.
it was a fun game. Like if there was something riding on it, it would have been better, but there
Yeah.
wasn't. Manchester led for most of it. Leicester kept coming back. Finally got a lead in the late stages of the third quarter. They were still chasing it down in the fourth quarter. They were down 5 going into the final minute. Carey with an impressive three, then Battle leveled it from the free throw line.
Well,
And
Kerry from the Hail Mary, to be fair.
yeah.
I mean, this is shot variance in games because Jones had a wide open three from the
Mm,
corner and missed, and Kerry makes that Hail Mary with Shelton in his face. It's a hell of a shot, but still. if you looked at expected goals to use
Yeah,
Joe,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
then or whatever second spectrum does on the NBA,
Well,
you know.
I saw a goal scored from 70 yards on Saturday
Mm.
afternoon, so anything can happen. Um,
Areas would have been a lot less than
yeah,
Joe,
yeah, yeah.
those sort of variants, and that's where I
The
hope.
they did try and win it, even though both you and I thought, oh, overtime would be better for Manchester here. And it didn't go into it; went to overtime. They basically traded scores in overtime. Kerry again another big three. Then Jones replied for three, and then just as he did last week, Spencer Johnson with the game-winning shot. This time it was an M1.
Yeah, I thought first at the end of overtime, I thought they ran a nice play, Manchester, to get Cleary open because everyone's looking at Jones and Smith. Um, Manchester's quite interesting because obviously Irving played, but he obviously wasn't right because he didn't play much. And they played a little bit of time with Ossaboy and Nicholson at the same time at the 4-5, and that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, he's experimenting with that. I'm not sure that experimentation will last that much longer. So he ended up with three guards, Cleary and Ossaboy, the big guy, which was interesting because, BBL, SLB, generally teams always get smaller as the game goes on, and they got as small as they realistically could be. But then none of those guys are natural rebounders, so Leicester hit them in rebounding in overtime, and Adukasi came back in. At the end, yeah, I mean, I wasn't overly impressed with much. I mean, Leicester's defense on Jones's three to the corner wasn't very good. You can't be letting their main jacket up scorer catch the
He'd only
ball.
scored 30 at that point, to be
Yeah, he
fair.
scored 30 at that point, and then but then you watch on the when they come back down, Johnson and I think it was Jones don't communicate properly, and Johnson has initially picked up the basketball, but as he comes towards the middle, one Johnson has to leave the basketball and go back to Spence. Jordan Johnson has to leave the basketball and go back to Spencer Johnson, but he doesn't go back quick enough, which means that Spencer Johnson is able to attack the space and attack, and Shelton has to pick him up because Johnson's not guarding him.
Mm,
And Spencer Johnson makes a great play. But the little things in basketball, transition defense is just about the biggest little thing going.
mm,
But then, and it's a thing that no one ever sees really.
mm,
But all it takes is one guy to be a little bit out of position. If the team is good enough and they're moving the ball quickly enough, they will kill you. And ultimately, Manchester didn't get matched up quickly enough,
mm,
and Johnson made the shot. And he's shooting it, so and
mm,
he's only one pass away, so you got to get matched up quicker.
mm. Battle 28, Carey 19 points, 15 assists. Bournemouth Rafe 13. Leicester with 13 of 32 from three. Jones 33 points and 6 assists. Cleary with 20. Smith with 17. Manchester with 15 of 34 from three.
Ton of talented guards on the court, I think you'd probably say.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
ton of talented guards playing.
So let's get to the one that did matter a little bit more. Sheffield Sharks 90, Caledonia Gladiators 79. Push Holland Wright still out. So I've not had time to go back through both of these next two games all the way through.
I watched this one. I watched this one. I watched the first. I watched three-quarters of the other one, so I'll take you through this a bit.
when I left the Mattioli, I thought this is not a problem because this game is over, and the other game was I think London were up 10 when I left. So I thought it doesn't really matter. And then I got home, and it was I think it was 16 in the Sheffield game and 4 in the London game. I was like, what the hell is going on? Anyway, there was a Sheffield run of 27-7 to lead 40-16, and seemingly, on commentary, we were saying they basically booked their berth right there.
And just so we're clear, I mean, they need to win by 14,
Mm,
basically. I mean,
yeah.
subject to London winning, which is basically going to happen. You would have thought,
Mm,
given that Surrey had no chance of qualifying. So Sheffield's number was 14,
mm,
um, and they um, basically destroyed Caledonia
mm,
early on. They scored at will. Their defense was good. I wouldn't say it was kind of mind-sappingly good because I don't think Caledonia were particularly good with the basketball. Kyle Jimenez is being worked to death. He played another 40 minutes in this
mm,
game.
mm,
And to be fair, he had 15 assists as well. So again, but they don't really have much. They didn't really have much outside of him in relation to shot creation going on. They were playing seven guys. And it was really a question of how many are Sheffield going to win by.
Mm,
That's what it was because everybody they weren't. It wasn't that they just made a ton of shots or that it was sugar rush. It was a procession. It was turnovers. Every turnover was a dunk, open threes for the guys. Sheffield seemed absolutely locked into it all. They knew what they had to do, and it was just dominant.
mm,
And you're right, I was the same. I'm thinking, oh well, they're going to win this by however many they need to plus more.
mm,
And then it's really difficult. It's difficult to actually know exactly what happened, except the one thing Caledonia can do is shoot.
mm,
Spielman and Ragsdale can shoot the heck out of the ball. Fraser Malcolm can shoot the ball if those guys, and they're a threat to shoot the ball when they're not open, right? And that has an impact on the psychology of a defense because most if you're up 25 or you're up 28, then maybe you don't need to drape yourself all over Ragsdale.
mm,
Maybe you don't need to drape yourself all over Spielman and make him drive and make them shoot really tough shots. Because you're up 25 or 28, if they pull a couple in your face, then so what?
mm. Got to 30 at one stage to lead.
Yeah, that is a player's mentality. But they were never up 30. They were only ever up 16.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, and the other thing about being down 30 is that one, players have pride,
Mm,
right? And two, players have nothing to lose.
mm,
So they're going to do what they do. And what Caledonia did, and I give Johnny credit for this because they went to a zone halfway through the third quarter because they couldn't guard anything up until that
mm,
point. And they went to kind of a 1-2-2, might have been a 3-2, depending on how you took, which is one guy at the top, two guys on the wing, two guys on the baseline. And they tried a little bit of that in the first half, and they got picked apart. They just threw it to the high post and threw it to the dunker spot, and it was a dunk. But in the second half, they tightened it up a bit. But also, Sheffield lost a little bit of that rhythm. And then you have, again, Sheffield's issue with having, 10 talented players. So who is it going to be who's going to carry you over the line? Is it going to be James who's going to get the basketball? Who's going to be knocking down the 3-point shots that you need to knock down at the end that this zone is giving up? Is it the guys who are open? And what happened was at the end of the third quarter, Ragsdale made a couple of shots and he made a couple of rhythm shots, right? And Atiba knew this because Atiba came out at the beginning of the fourth quarter and he stuck Dirk on him. And Dirk basically blanketed him, right, for probably 4 or 5 minutes. But by that point, the damage had been done
mm,
because when Sheffield got a little bit antsy in the zone, missed a couple of shots, and then Caledonia get a couple of runouts, um, then and this is a game that Caledonia really don't care whether they win, but they lose by 14 or 20.
yeah.
It doesn't matter to them. They're just playing as hard as they can, right? I mean, they're not going to be going around high five and saying, "Yeah, we kept those guys out the semi-finals." They're going to be thinking we got beat by 15,
Yeah, yeah.
12 or 11, right? But what they did do was keep playing, and I thought the lineup that he had with Jimenez, Ragsdale, Spielman, Malcolm, and Carr, the whitest lineup ever in the history of the SLB. We have to talk about this stuff. Sorry, whatever. It's still the truth. The palest Scottish lineup ever,
Mm,
right? But that lineup, they played better together because Brian had 4 fouls by then. He did nothing wrong. Brian had 4 fouls, but he played a bit of Fag Bentley at the point guard, like, actually to try and loosen things up as well. But they played with a little bit more energy and togetherness, that unit in the zone, and a little bit more rhythm. And Sheffield just basically choked. I
mm.
can't put any of that. I can't say
No,
it any other
no.
way.
Now, I still thought, because it got down to about 16, and you were thinking, oh, it's right on the edge here. But when Spielman fouls out with 3:10 to go on a technical, they hit the
The
foul
most
shot.
technical in the history of the
Yeah,
world from
yeah,
Bristol's perspective.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah,
Spielman's probably thinking I played 35 minutes on Friday. I played 30 minutes. We're losing by 20. Who gives a toss?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to go and sit on the bench. But I can imagine what when it says Capoulas and Burns were thinking about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. And then Retino scores.
How do you swear in Greek, Dan? What was it?
Well, I don't know any Greek swear words,
Oh, okay,
unfortunately.
right, okay. I'm sure I'll be
Uh,
close.
Retino then scored on the next play. It's 86-69. And you're thinking, well, that's done. And even with 90 seconds to go, it's 18 points, and Sheffield had the ball. So you're thinking they surely will get it over the line from
Then what
here,
happens,
or
Dan?
I was anyway.
What happens then is that Matthew Ragsdale gets the ball 30 feet from the basket. He steps to his left around the screen, and we know
Yeah,
by now that he likes to shoot off a left-hand dribble because
yeah,
he
yeah,
kind of cocks it back. And Mervyn James, who hasn't probably seen much of him,
yeah.
um, isn't up on the screen.
Mm,
And I remember thinking, as you know, I think you got to be up. I remember thinking as he shot it,
mm,
before he shot it, you got to be up on that. You have to trap the ball out of his hands at that point. You know, James has to be up. He guarded him like he was just anybody else. In fact, he was the only guy who was going to who was going to make that shot or make a shot at any point. And you saw Atiba's face. Atiba immediately was like, "Get up on it. You got to be up on
mm,
him."
mm.
You know, and it was the Nixon whoever it was at Leicester last year.
Yeah, yeah.
Nixon and was it? I can't remember. Was it Shelton? I can't remember who it was on the in the game. But somebody wasn't up on the screen,
Mm,
you know, and he just shot a rhythm three going to his left, and he made it. And at that point, I think I think Sheffield
mm.
basically got tight.
So that was with 59 and a half seconds to go. And it's 15 at that point, 88 73. And in their heads, I think they were thinking 15 because 15 put them ahead on points difference. 14
Yeah,
would have been level on points difference, but by that point in the game, they'd already gone past on points
yeah.
scored. But they wouldn't have known they needed to get 71 or whatever it was
Yeah,
over.
okay. I think you've got to be kind of aware, but go
Yeah,
on.
players wouldn't. They'd just
Players,
be.
yeah,
You'd just tell a player 15 and
yeah,
don't
before the
take
game.
the before the game. So then Dirk misses a corner three. Sheffield get the rebound, and James misses from underneath the basket, trying to sort of scoop one back. Malcolm then on the break lays it in 39-34, 88-75. So now they're actually short of the number because it's 13 at this point. They're in trouble. Timeout, advance the ball. Chapman misses, gets his own rebound. Toto then blocks the shot. Nixon tries a touch pass to Retino. That goes out of bounds, and there's 23.6 seconds left. And then you've got that weird situation where they're trying to force a turnover. They kind of need to foul, but they're winning by 13, so it's not natural to think we need to foul in this situation. And Caledonia managed to run some clock and get it down to 16.4 before Malcolm was fouled. He made two free throws, and it's an 11-point game,
One of
88-77.
which, and an even weirder situation whereby it's only matters to one team.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't matter to Caledonia at
Well,
all.
it matters to Bristol, to
Matters to
be fair,
Bristol, yeah, matters
but
to
yeah,
one
it
team on the
didn't matter
court.
to
Yeah, yeah,
Caledonia.
yeah.
Um,
Um, and so they need a three.
yeah,
They need
timeout,
12.
advance the ball. Nixon misses a three, and then Malcolm got two free throws, basically to seal Sheffield's fate, sort of. It wasn't quite sealed at that point.
But then they chose not to foul with 4 seconds left when they were only 3 points behind,
Yeah,
thinking they were 4 points behind.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
I
you
think
know,
they were discombobulated at that point. Was my take.
yeah, I think yeah, that's probably right. The It's just weird, you know. It's not. They've got a
It
lot.
was at that point, by the way, that I went back, clipped up Nick Kearns made three after the buzzer on Friday, and said, "This is how close Sheffield were to the semi-finals."
Yeah, yeah. And they got London. That would have been interesting.
Mm.
Um, there is, there's a hell of a team in there with Sheffield,
Yeah, yeah,
and ultimately they just beat Caledonia by
11.
12. In reality, beat them 11, but in reality, beat them by 30.
Mm.
They dominated the game. So how can you be that down on a team which dominates the game against another pro team?
Mm.
Because they didn't complete the job.
Mm.
And the Caledonia team that the lineup that Caledonia had out there should not have scored 79 points on Sheffield. That's fundamentally where we're gone from. And where they get those shots from, they got those shots from Spielman shooting jump shots and from Ragsdale shooting jump shots.
Mm.
Um, it yeah, just very, very, it's been a weird week for Sheffield because, they came out against Newcastle last week at home and just were just really disappointing. I'm sure they thought that. Then they come up again, they come out and they play a periods at Newcastle really well, but give up 94 points ultimately to a team who hasn't scored 100 all season. And then they come out and they destroy Caledonia for 2.5 quarters,
Mm,
but then just imploded. It's really tough because you don't know what's going on in the locker room, but there's some mental toughness issues there
mm,
that there have to be. And in relation to finishing games off and playing consistently throughout games. And sometimes it can be as much as just having too much talent and having to figure out how to get all that talent on the same page. It is not easy. But it was. I mean, I don't. Tiber had the right guys on the court.
mm.
He had his guys on the court at the end. He had the guys who need to be playing. He's entitled to expect them to finish that game off properly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm afraid, they just didn't. And it's a bottle of whiskey's flying up from Bristol to Caledonia as we
Mm,
speak.
yeah. James 20 and 10 rebounds. Williams 18.6 assists. Deloach 6 of 6 shooting for 14 points. Spielman had 23. Ragsdale 6 of 15 from 3 for 21 points. Malcolm 12.
If I've got that Caledonia team, there's no, and I've said this before, that Caledonia team without Wright and without um,
Holland.
Holland, there's no way Ragsdale's getting 15 3-point shots in 35 minutes. There's no way because he doesn't shoot many bad shots. Every shot he shoots, you think has got a chance of going in. He can't get that many shots.
So, at the point that that game finished, Sheffield were not technically out of it because if Surrey had won by 4 or more at London, London would have been out. And
That's
Bristol would
right,
have
yeah.
topped the group, and Sheffield would have been the second best runner up because they would have had a better points difference than London. And that game was still going on, and that outcome was still a possibility at the point at which there was about
Yeah.
4 minutes left in the London game. It was a 2 or 3 point game at the point at which Sheffield finished. But it finished London Lions 87, Surrey 89ers 83. So there was no McGusty, no Jonathan Williams. Reynolds was back. Lucas Shunas was in. Randall got his first start for London. And they got up early, London. A couple of Lucas Shunas threes had them 11-2, had an 11-2 run to lead 38-22 and seemingly cruising.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the first 2 quarters and the fourth quarter, so I didn't watch the
Mm.
third quarter before we came on. Didn't have time. Um, yeah, London shuffling the pack again. No McGusty, no
Oh,
Scott.
the one thing I should say is there was a lot of disquiet on social media because obviously this game was played at New City College.
But they
Um,
had the pictures out, didn't they?
yeah, yeah. So there were seats there, uh,
Hmm.
but obviously there's netball on this weekend at the Copper Box. But I thought he was a little. When I turned on and saw that it wasn't full, it seems a bit harsh that nobody was able to buy a ticket.
Is that right?
Yeah, so people couldn't buy.
Did-
People were complaining. Surrey fans, particularly, were complaining that they couldn't buy a ticket. It was only open to, I think, season ticket holders, and they had some development day thing on. So you sort of think, okay, well, if you've got something going on and it's full, that's fair enough. But it wasn't full, so it seemed a bit. I guess you can't know how many of all of these people are turning up, but it just
Well,
it looked odd given all of the complaints, and London had to come out and do an apology on social media as well for the situation, and then there's a lot of empty
yeah, I
seats.
mean, it's as my old mate who used to travel. I used to travel around the country with watching basketball would say, um, fur coat and no knickers.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's a hideously unpolitically correct phrase now, I'm guessing, but it wasn't 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Insofar as, London they can play EuroLeague, Eurocup, they can have, basically a roster of what must be about 15 or 16 players now, got their own training venue, the traveling route. They've got the coaching platoon, all of that stuff. But then you haven't got anybody who can actually manage selling tickets for a game.
Mm,
That's kind of the no-neckers bit. Really, it's not it's what's under the visage that really matters.
mm.
And that's kind of an allegory for the whole league in relation to all the stuff that we talked about last week, which needs to get sorted out. Which goes beyond the immediate viewpoint. I didn't realize you couldn't buy tickets for it. I mean, they've got bleachers there. There's not that many fewer
So
seats there.
it was
But Bristol,
I can't remember the exact thing, but it was something along the lines of season ticket holders were allowed, London season ticket holders were allowed. The normal, whatever the number is that the away team gets, were allowed. But they
25.
had some development day thing, so they had people coming for that, which I get, and I haven't got a problem with it. The problem is there were too many empty seats
I looked like there was about
that
space for
people who
about
wanted to
250
buy
people
could have
there.
had.
Looked like there's space for about 250 more people there.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
wasn't that much smaller than there wasn't that many less seats in Bristol,
Mm,
you know, because it's only basically a one-sided court.
mm,
Um, and if given that these games have been scheduled for a while,
mm.
there's no, well, unfortunately, Dan, basically every club in the league runs off ticket income apart from London.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Every other club needs ticket income. That's why we have so many games. That's why
Mm,
these teams are playing 20, 21 home games a year, because to run a professional club and you have to have sources of income, and the best one is game night.
mm,
But because the TV money isn't there, governing body money isn't there, so then it's whatever sponsorship you can rustle up in a very competitive sponsorship market and game night.
mm,
Right? London don't need that. London have, and there may be a couple of other teams don't need it as much as well, but those taps can always be turned off. But London have a Lithuanian company who are running them. Therefore, to be frank, it's probably going to cost them more than it would raise for them to sell those 200 tickets.
yeah, yeah, probably.
No point somebody. Right? Ergo, we don't do it. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be done,
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's the impact it has and the impression it gives. And
Mm,
it's the thing I say about governance all the time. You have to have rules about this
mm,
stuff.
mm,
What's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And the situation should be, if you're going to hold a game which you're not going to put tickets on sale, you're going to pay a fine to the league
mm,
because you're letting down the image of the league.
mm. Well, it's just
Okay?
even like how many people would
But
Surrey have
pay a
brought?
fine, that's the rules. There's no rules. So
Surrey would have brought, I don't know, 50, 60, something like
yeah.
that. They'd easily have fit them in. So it seemed a bit, given all of the noise that I'd seen during the week, when I turned it on and saw all those empty seats, I just thought that doesn't
But
make
that's a
any
thousand
sense.
pounds. That's £1,000 to London. That is literally, they're paying 16 or 17 players there that we know their budget's over 800,000 minimum because they're only playing four Americans in the
Yeah,
league rules. So what's £1,000 to a team that's probably bankrolled to a degree of probably half of their income, half of their overheads. So they're probably bankrolled to a degree of 750,000 this year.
mm,
Another thousand doesn't matter to them.
mm.
That's the money they'll be losing.
Anyway, let's go back to the game. 38-32, they were leading and seemingly cruising, but Surrey responded with the next 9 points to just about stay in touch.
Yeah, pardon me. Got the lurgy as well. Sorry. This was a game again which didn't really matter to Surrey. They lost their first game by 20. They would have to win by 30 um, to qualify. So it was never really going to happen. But I was impressed with how hard they played. There's a lot to like about Surrey, and Kuntz in particular. You know, I think Mark Clark made mention to it on the commentary that they did see quite a lot of him in pre-season and they quite liked him, which is probably why he's still around.
Mm,
And first couple, he started again and he looked a lot more comfortable on the court. Made a couple of catch and shoot threes with kind of real quick release, and demonstrated. I think that he might just fit what they want because you put another shooter around the two guards and you become that four out team with the big guy in the middle that Lloyd always likes to have. So London always going to be Reynolds' first game back, so that's going to be tough for him.
mm,
running, playing without the big guy in the middle, so Price and Soko playing the minutes. But still, Dean Williams again, excellent in the first quarter, attacking the rim, also defending, good length and good and kind of a smart player. And London were getting to the rim a little bit better than Surrey could handle. But it's tough when you're. There was a little bit of Sheffield in London insofar as they didn't really sustain what they need to do. They had a lot of combinations of players out there, and whereas Surrey don't really have that amount of combinations, but they all kind of know their job. So Graham goes in, plays 5 minutes hard, makes a couple of push shots. Ling comes in, rolls hard to the rim. Um, Surrey's organised kind of basketball actually is a good foil for London because it's not your Cheshire chaos, if I can put it that way. London are playing at a certain speed and they're going up and down the court and they're running their stuff. But Surrey are doing that as well. And Surrey do have some shot makers, and Lily made some shots in this
Mm.
game. And what you're going to find, I think, and it happened the same with Taylor at Newcastle, is that a lot of these guys are going to have good games against London.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Helps the
It's a
tape.
good tape. It's a good tape to have, for the progression of your career. Lily and Pele made shots. But saying that, they never led in this game. They got down to two, I think, at one point, but they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
never in the lead.
yeah.
And they didn't almost they didn't quite have the there were multiple times where they could have made a run, but London don't. It's hard to make runs on London because London don't turn the
Mm,
ball over much. London run their offense. London don't give you that much up in transition easy. They make you work for their points, all of that stuff. So, you can play with them for 10 or 12 minutes, and certainly you've got a chance of beating them when they haven't got Scott and McGusty to bail them out because they're the
yeah,
guys who
yeah,
generally do. But you still end up with Aaron Rye making a three with
yeah,
2 minutes
yeah,
to go.
yeah.
When they're up
Let's
two, and he makes a shot.
let's get to that. I've got that down. We should also note 2:45 in the third quarter. One of the refs got injured. I don't know if it was a calf or a hamstring or a back or something, but he hobbled out. So they finished the game with two referees. Surrey cut it from 10 points to 2 points, and suddenly it was in the balance. And I'm manically writing down notes on a game that I wasn't expecting to have to write notes down.
Yeah,
Traded scores through the fourth quarter. It's 77-74 with two to play, and Surrey had the ball
yeah.
at that stage. But then Small got called for an offensive foul. There was nearly a turnover. It wasn't clear as to whether the ball got deflected. That's the downside of having two referees, is you don't necessarily have all the best angles.
No.
So they did what you're supposed to do in that situation. They didn't know. They gave it to London on the possession arrow. Randall then made a jump
You're going to
shot.
say they did what they're supposed to do. They didn't know they gave it to London.
No, I didn't
That would
say
be the
that.
most controversial thing you've ever said. That would have been the most. Put it there, and we'll leave it at that. And on that bombshell, Routledge suggesting corruption in the league by the Lithuanian cartel.
Yeah.
But no, sadly not.
Randall with a jump shot made it 79-74 with 137 to go. Lily behind the screen for three. Big shot that. 79-77 with 121 to go. Price then missed a three, but Williams with the offensive rebound, and this is the shot you were talking about, comes out to Rye 52 seconds to go. He hits a three, 82-77.
Yeah, and that shot that Lily made was a hell of a shot. But the question I had in my own mind was, would Surrey have got that shot? Would any of Surrey guys knock down that shot if they'd only been down two at the time?
Mm.
And it seems it's a psychological thing, where a team
Yeah.
can never quite. You've not been up. How you can? I mean, it's remarkable. Think about it. You're down two with a minute to go in the game, and you've never been in the lead.
Mm. Mm.
And it's not been a case of making a last minute comeback either.
Mm.
It's been bubbling around the whole time. And it was just kind of getting over that hump. And against that, Surrey aren't playing for anything. So, the fact that they were so competitive, the coach has to be really happy with
Mm.
kind of, it's a true development game for them. They're getting the game out of Kuntz. Their centers their young centers are getting more experience, and they're competing. They really are competing.
Technically, they were playing for something earlier on because if they needed a big win, 15, 20 points or something. So
Well, they were down,
obviously
they
at
were
this
minus
point it
19,
wasn't.
weren't they?
Yeah, yeah, but if it got to a three-way tie and they won by enough, they could overtake
Well,
the other two
well, they were
teams.
-19 and Bristol were +9. So that means they had to win by 29 to
Yeah,
get to a
so
three-way tie.
so possible then is
So
what
they
you're
were
saying.
playing for nothing.
Yeah.
I'll
So
stick to my
at this
national.
point they were, but early in the
Yeah,
game,
okay. Early in the
when the
game,
ball went
they were under
off,
by 30.
it's
Okay, right now.
I think
Yeah.
they had a better chance than Leicester did. Put it that way.
Yeah, okay. Well,
The
well, yeah, but Leicester weren't playing London, and
yeah
we'll come
yeah
back to
yeah
Planet Earth.
yeah. So where were we? Then Small misses a three, but he gets the rebound and lays it in. So 82-79 with 38 seconds to go. Rye is fouled. He goes 1 for 2. Williams grabbed the offensive rebound, but then gets wrapped up. 29.5 seconds to go. And the referees did exactly what they're supposed to do and gave the ball to Surrey
Very good.
on the possession arrow.
On the possession arrow.
Timeout advanced the ball. Small misses. Price is fouled. Makes both. 22 seconds to go. 85-79. That was basically the game, or at least at that point, I was about to stop taking notes. But then, with I think it was 13 seconds to go, it was an end line ball to London, and Sholovinskas is called for a foul before the ball is inbounded. So that's a throw in foul, as I well know, because I cocked it up on Sky Sports a few years ago. And a throw in foul is one shot, and then you go back
Oh,
to the possession that you are.
he's on the
Now,
ball.
it was given as two shots and no possession. Before the throw in foul came in, that foul in the last 2 minutes was an unsportsmanlike foul.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I remember seeing that in a Milton Keynes game 15 years ago at the end of a game I was commentating on. And so the idea that it would be two free throws and not possession is
It's just,
from a rule of at least 20 years ago.
well, I can only think that the refs got together and said the ball was in bounds on the foul, but it wasn't.
It wasn't.
It wasn't close.
No.
But what I will say, there's an earlier call, you might not have seen it. There was an earlier call whereby I think Polite made a great play in transition and was fouled, and an unsportsmanlike was called on a London guy, maybe in Philip, who kind of put his shoulder into him. And the refs called it on the ground on the basis that it was a non-play on the ball in sportsmanlike as opposed to a last man sportsmanlike, but they still called him. He clearly picked the basketball up.
Mm,
He made a hell of a play. He veers off to the right. He puts it in off the glass. It wasn't a sportsmanlike foul. It should have been two on the ball. Two,
mm,
one shot on the ball. And you see, Lloyd's right in front of Lloyd, and Lloyd's saying that, and Polite's actually saying to him, "I picked it up," and the ref saying it was on the ground, and it wasn't.
mm.
And I'm standing there looking at it when it happens. I'm watching the video, thinking, that's two in the ball. It's 2-1 in the ball.
I can almost live. I didn't see that, but I can almost live with that because it's
I get
about
you, Cam.
interpretation of whether it's picked up. This
I
is
can't
about
if it was
what is the rule. The rule
yeah,
is one free throw. It can't be two free throws. It can't
no.
be.
I'm,
And
I'm,
I'm actually surprised that nobody complained about it on
yeah.
the Surrey side.
Well, I think
I mean, it's a rule you don't see very often, so maybe people didn't think about it, but it's still.
I actually thought when they talked to each other, they talked to each other to say the ball, then they decided the ball was in bounds. That's what I thought. Because I thought that's all it could have been.
Mm,
That the ball was in bounds, it was a normal foul. But it clearly wasn't. And I'm getting kind of frustrated. Obviously, there was missed goaltending in this game. There's missed goaltending in every game. And I'm kind of getting frustrated by the amount of times people have picked the basketball up and they're not getting two shots.
mm,
It's happened. That's happened on multiple occasions this week. I can't quote them all, but whereby um, the balls they're in their step, they pick the basketball up, even if they're away from the basket, and they're not being given a shooting foul, and it should be. And I honestly think I do. I think it comes down to the level that people have refed at. If you've been refing in wheelchair basketball or women's basketball at the lower levels or men's basketball at the lower levels, you don't see the level of athleticism that allows these guys to cover 10, 12, 14 feet, on two steps. And you think the fouls come when the ball's on the ground, and it's not because these guys are good enough that they know to pick the basketball up.
mm,
And it's beginning to frustrate me,
mm,
like most things.
mm. Um, Obviously, it's irrelevant because two
Yeah.
shots, one shot doesn't matter. But it's just a bad mistake. But and the game was over at that point
Yeah.
anyway.
And so didn't, and Surrey weren't that fussed
Yeah.
because they only needed to score another 34 and they were good.
They could have got a tactical overtime.
Tactical, they didn't need a tactical replay. At that point, the best chance would be sending someone on the roof to drill a hole and hope it rained.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, doing the old Jason Kidd thing and throwing a cup of tea on the court or something like that. But even then.
So, Lucas Schoenis with 18 points, 5 of 5 from 3 point
Yeah,
range.
I saw some of those threes in the second quarter. He doesn't need long to get the ball off, dear me.
No. Uh, Rye was 5 of 6 from the floor for 14 points. Philip 14 points and 6 assists. Lily 22 points and 5 assists. Small 14 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Graham 14 points, 6 of 8 shooting for 6 rebounds, which means the semi-finals are Newcastle against Cheshire and London against Bristol, which I think are
Which
2 legs.
again, absolutely drives a line through the whole. Let's draw it before we know who's in it.
Mm, mm,
Because this should have been a rule that you can't play a team that's in your own group.
mm,
I'm sorry. If FIFA can manage to split 48 teams, albeit with associated nonsense surrounding it, 48 teams up into confederations and groups that don't have, more than one extra team from the same confederation or whatever, if they can do it with somebody as sharp as Rio Ferdinand running the show, then I'm quite sure that we can manage to avoid having two teams that have just literally played each other, having to play each other twice more
mm,
in a group semi-final. I mean, I think that's just just crackers.
mm,
And again, it's a lack of it's indicative of let's get something done, not let's look at the competition structure.
mm,
You've got a three-team group for Christ's sake, and you've got two of them playing each other in the semi-finals
mm.
twice. I
Yeah.
mean, it just makes no sense to me, and I wish people would think about this stuff. I wish there's a and it's all a bit. I get it doesn't in the grand scheme of things. We'll forget about it, just like we forget lots of other things.
Mm,
But from a playing perspective, I don't think London should be playing Bristol again. I think if London play Bristol once in a competition, then they should be free at the final.
mm. There we go. We've
There we
reached the
go.
end. We've reached the
Right.
end. I've got nothing further to add, Your Honour.
No, we've kept it below like 30
2 hours.
was today. Yeah, that's all
Mm,
right. No, neither have I really, other than the fact that I could do with this cold don't going away.
mm,
And interesting to see what St. Eddie says in the paper tomorrow.
mm.
Apart from that, let's see what happens. Back to the league next week, yeah.
Back to the league next week. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It
So,
might well be Monday because I believe I'm in Manchester on Sunday.
oh my goodness gracious, you do get around. I
Mm,
mean, well, of course, there is a real suspicion that, given that your travails are taking place just before Christmas, what you're actually doing is scouting for gifts.
well, it could be. We'll
There's
see.
hunting for
We'll see
presents.
what next Sunday
Yeah, we'll see
brings.
what Manchester brings, eh? Yeah, we'll see, we'll see. Maybe, but was there any risk that maybe Cheshire might retract theirs due to your disloyalty?
Well, who knows? Quite possibly.
Mm,
I've
just,
to be fair, I've eaten most of the chocolates now.
I'm just saying, just be careful. Don't spit too much at their
Mm,
loyalty. You
mm,
know what I
mm.
mean? All that stuff. Nah, okay, Manchester it isn't. I'm going to Centre Parks anyway, so it will have to be Monday.
Okay, enjoy.
Centre
Well,
Parks for the
might it be Tuesday? Don't doesn't Centre Box isn't that a whole Friday to Monday thing, isn't there?
It's Friday and Monday, but I'm hoping for a quick escape.
Okay.
Don't tell the in-laws.
Okay.
Oops, probably
Yeah,
just
yeah.
did. Keep it on the
I'm
card.
sure they're
Ah,
big avid viewers of Sunday Night
yeah,
Breakdown.
I think I've got to be at work. I saw the same. Hopefully Monday night,
Mm.
and I don't know how much I'm going to be able to watch. Going,
Well,
instead of doing kind of archery and
yeah,
snowshoe,
yeah,
other types of stuff I'll be lined up for.
yeah,
Snooker football or whatever it is. Jesus.
yeah.
It'll be, but the kids will like it.
Enjoy Centre Parks, Mr. Grinch.
Yeah, absolutely. That's me. Proudly. Proudly.
Uh, so Dave will be back next Monday night to tell us tales of archery and the like at Centre Parks. I'll
Can't
try and
believe
watch.
anybody would give me an arrow. I'll be honest. I just can't contemplate that. Anybody. I just hope they all know how to duck.
I'll try and watch some basketball to keep us in our usual non-meandering rhythm,
Yeah.
and we'll see where we go. But for now, have a good week, everybody. See you next week. Goodbye.
Oh, yes. Thank you.